And the structure today will consist of 3 short presentations by those who submitted examples of good remote digital practice in modern foreign languages teaching at primary level, followed by questions, about 10 minutes of questions. So this will last about half an hour. And then there'll be another half an hour slot with, again, 3 short presentations followed by questions. And then finally, we'll end with a remote learning clinic with questions and answers arising from the first event or indeed from the presentations today.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to start with 3 presentations, one after the other. If you have questions as they go through, put them in the chat. And then at the end, we'll take questions on the 3 of them together. We'll have about 10 minutes for you to raise any issues that arise out of their presentations. So we're going to start with Kate Percival, who's a MFL coordinator at Broomfields Junior School in Warrington. Okay, Kate, over to you.
Thank you, Bernadette. I will just share my screen. There we go. So as Bernadette says, I'm Kate Percival, a Year 6 teacher at the moment at Broomfields Junior School, where I'm also MFL coordinator. I'm also a Primary Languages Network associate teacher and teacher trainer as well. So I just wanted to share with you today a resource which has been created by the Primary Languages Network in Spanish and French by PLN native speakers Irene Hernandez and Emily Woodruff, who you've heard speak at this event last time. So it's a Mother's Day poem resource, which originally we planned on maybe teaching this remotely. But of course, primary school children were back in school last week, so we actually got to deliver it in person. But it's a lesson that can equally work at home as it can do in the classroom. So I thought it was something I'm really proud of to be able to share with you today. So you can see the slides of the poem come up now, and the way it works was basically the children have a go at reading the poem. I'm doing the French version today. Then they listen to it as there's a video that's been made, and then they unpick its meaning and use it as a basis to write their own version of the poem. And as it was for Mother's Day, we said this could then incorporate anybody special to them. So it needn't be mum per se, it might be grandma, auntie, childminder, someone special who has maybe helped them during home learning or supported them during lockdown, someone they love that they've maybe missed, not had a chance to see. So this lesson started with us thinking in terms of what kind of words we might expect to hear and to see in a poem in a foreign language about Mother's Day. So just in English to start with, we mind mapped a few adjectives that we might expect to see. So online, this could be children using the chat function just to jot down example, kind, funny, caring, supportive, just giving them a bit of a prediction on what they might eventually see in the foreign language. We then read the poem. As you can see, the poem follows a repeated structure. So once we'd worked out what tu es means, you are, then we just had the final part of each slide to work out. We talked about cognate words. So that second slide you can see there, tu es spécial. They were quite quick to realize that that means special. Tu es courageuse, there was a bit of discussion there that it's like courageous, which is brave, so we cracked that one. Some were a bit trickier, so the 4th slide along, tu es travailleuse, we had to use the picture clues there. And actually in one of the sessions I'd done, we'd mind mapped some English adjectives to start, as I say, and hardworking was one of the ones we came up with in English. So it was quite nice to see that actually that is something that we got from our predictions. So with the 5th slide, tu es drôle, you are funny. Not a lot of the children had heard the English word drôle, meaning amusing or funny, but that was quite a nice link to make as well, a nice discussion point. So any words we didn't understand, any of those adjectives, we did have access to bilingual dictionaries for in the class. If this was done remotely, then there is a great online dictionary called wordreference.com. Which can just be open in a separate tab to the learning platform that the children are accessing at the time. And actually it's a lot quicker, isn't it, to type into an online dictionary than to actually look up in a physical dictionary. I really believe that looking up words in a bilingual dictionary is a real skill, and it's something that sadly I think we are losing as we are going forward with the technological age. But it's something that you can still spend time on, and even whole lessons really working on that skill. skills. So the point of this lesson was really more about being creative with the language. So actually wordreference.com or a similar online dictionary would speed up that looking up process. So the second part of the poem is more figurative, if you like. It uses metaphors and similes to compare a special person to something. So this one here, tu es le printemps, you are the spring. Tu es comme les fleurs, you are like the flowers. So we looked at that word comme, and it's a bit like compared. So every time we saw comme from then on, we knew we were comparing one thing to another and using a simile. What we also realised was some of the vocabulary that we were meeting in this poem, we'd actually met before. So at Primary Languages Network, around September, October time, there was a song written by Joanne Hornby for the European Day of Languages called The Rainbow of Love. And that was also in French and in Spanish. And in that was vocabulary to do with nature, so sun, rain, flowers, sky, rainbow, and actually a lot of that vocabulary was repeated here. So it's a great prior learning to base this activity on, and real confidence boost for the children as well. In slide 9, a nice little grammar reminder when we've got le ciel bleu. So the children in my class in year 6 are aware of the grammar rule, the adjective coming after the noun. So they were able to pick that out and you know, have that as a reminder for when they came to write their own poem. So we then had a go at saying the poem, and we were really careful with the silent S in A, and some of the tricky ones like tu es courageuse, tu es travailleuse, we actually had to do a bit of clapping for the syllables, tu es travailleuse, tu es courageuse, and that was really useful. Again, that could work equally well remotely. And I know a colleague of mine who used this resource actually looked at different parts of speech. So you'll see an example of it a little bit later. They split their whiteboards or their paper into 2 or 3 columns, and they searched for the verbs, the nouns, the adjectives, and actually classified the different parts of speech. So after that, we had a go at watching and listening to the video, which, as I say, has been recorded by PLN. So I'll play this for you now, and you can see how it works.
Tu es spéciale. Tu es courageuse. Tu es travailleuse. Tu es drôle. Tu es le printemps. Tu es comme les fleurs. Tu es comme le soleil. Tu es comme le ciel bleu. Tu es la meilleure.
So that was a lovely way to have that native speaker sound coming through and reinforcing that pronunciation. So just to finish, this was the outcome really. So the children were given the chance to make mini books, which is the sheet you can see in the middle, an A4 page cut into 6, and then they rearranged either the lines from the original poem into their own version, which for some children that was enough, or for others who were more able, they could use different adjectives at the end of their set phrases. So they could use dictionaries or, as I say, wordreference.com. What we found for the majority of children was it was more manageable for them to maybe reuse 2 of them and then look up 1. So as I say, it didn't spend too long researching the language. I was really impressed though with the metaphorical ideas that they came up with. They wanted to compare their special person to a warm hug and a hot chocolate, and someone even said a puppy. So that was quite nice that they got to research those words to be able to put into their poem and give to their special person. So I just want to show my last slide, which you can see these are what some of the final products look like. Some children, if they were learning at home, could equally have recorded these using an app such as voice memo, or even film them as a little video file, and that could have been then submitted onto Google Classroom or whichever platform you're using, or sent to somebody who it's intended for. So I shall finish there. Thank you for listening.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kate. It's lovely that repetition of the structures and revisiting of vocabulary they've learnt before. So thank you for that. That's lovely.
Okay.
Okay, so we're now on to Vanesa, Macia, Domene, and over to you to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Bernadette. No, thank you, Kate. Very good ideas over there. So first of all, thank you very much for inviting me. It's my pleasure being here. And today I'm going to speak about bamboozle. Okay. So what is bamboozle? Bamboozle is a tool to create question and answer game. It only requires one screen to project question, and a student don't need another extra device to play. It's very interesting that it has a team game mode. And then you will say, why bamboozle? Because nowadays there are like so many IT tools, websites, apps. But what I think that make it bamboozle great is this team competition feature. And also it's really easy to use. It is free and you can play online or in the classroom, and it's suitable for all ages. I play bamboozle with my son, who is 3-year-old, and also I'm using with my adult student. As I say, it is free, but also it has a paid version. So I'm only using the free version because it allows you to create unlimited games. And the only thing that it has is like you cannot set a game with more than 4 teams. So the 14 is the maximum that allows. So I'm going to show you how it looks when you are inside of the website. I'm sharing my screen. Okay, so once you are inside the website, you will have to create an account. As I say, it's free, and login. When you are logging, you will have this menu on top, my games, my like, my folder, games, and new. And what I really like is this button is game. When you press in games, you will, yes, you will see a lot of game that other people has created, so you don't really need to play new game. Maybe you can search for some game. For example, I'm going to put just, for example, French, to see some game that they are created in French language. So we have here French number, nationalities, greetings, a lot of things, animal. So when you see ones that you like it, for example, French greeting, if you want to save, you just press this heart, like the game, and automatically will be in your section where it says My Likes. So in My Likes are all the games that other people have created and that I like them. So let's go to my game. And again, at the beginning, you wouldn't have nothing in here because those are the game that I created. Okay, so let's have a look some of the game that I created. So let's have a look this one. ¿Qué animal es? What animal is it? So I'm going to give to the student 3 words, and with these 3 words, the student needs to guess what is the animal. So I'm going to play the game. So when you go inside, you are going to see a preview of the game, okay? And in here, if you press on the left button, you will see the answer, but obviously I don't want to show the student the answer, so I just hide. And then you have play, where you will play study. If you want to play the game before, let's show you cannot use unless you have the premium version, and then edit. Edit, you can, as I say, edit your own game, but you cannot edit game that other people has created, because if you want to edit, then you will have to pay for the paid version. So just let's play to see how it looks. So when you press play, first you have the instruction on top, and then you have the teams. You need to set how many teams you want to play. I said before the maximum is 4 teams. So let's just pick 2 teams. And then also you can choose some options. Some of the options are for the paid version, but then you have some of them that they are for free. For example, you can put a timer, or you can select wrong answer, lose point, or reset the score. But normally, to be honest, I just leave it like that. I don't put the timer or nothing. And then 3 mode games, quiz, classes, or classic junior. I normally play just the classic one. So let's see. So this is what the student will see. So when I was during the lockdown and doing the online lesson, I just will share my screen with the students. Okay, and now that I'm in the classroom, I just go in front of the classroom and I share the screen. So in the classroom, I did this game, for example, on Monday, and I divided my class in 2 groups, one on the right, one on the left, and then we start playing. So one team 1, another one team 2. And I ask you, team 1 are doing the target language, so they also can practice number. And I will say, ¿qué número? What number? Team 1. So I choose one person from team 1. I say, ¿qué número? And they have to tell me one number. For example, número 2. So then I press 2. And then they have 3 words. And with these 3 words, they need to guess what animal it is. So, rey, Simba, jungla. ¿Qué animal es? What animal is rey, Simba, jungla? And then if they know, for example, that this one is león, and they say león, then I check. Is león? Sí. Then you press OK. And then it gives the points to team 1. Now it's turn to team 2. Team 2, give me a number. For example, 5. 2 patas, amarillo, agua. ¿Qué animal es? And again, they have to tell me. Imagine that they don't know the animal. So I press check. This one was pato, and they don't know. So I need to press oops. Oops. And then team 1, número 4. Rosa, granja, sucio. ¿Qué animal es? What animal it is? And if they say cerdo, so then you press OK. And the another team 2. Agua verde, saltar. ¿Qué animal es? Okay, I really. Team 1, swap points. So sometimes you have also this option that they will have to swap point or win extra point or less point. Orejas, bigote, Pascua. ¿Qué animal es? Conejo. Okay. En Team 1, ¿qué número? Número 6. Win 25 points, gana 25 puntos. Y el último, número 8, alto, amarillo, cuello, jirafa. And then, here we are, my jirafa. Yeah, so winner is Team 2. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to create the game. To create the game, to create the game, you need to go to My Games and you just press New Game. It's really easy to create, but as I said, you don't need to create, you can use another one. So title, let's create one about fruits. So we put fruits, and then this one, this is going to be the cover picture. So for the cover picture, the one that I showed you, it has my Bitmoji, but you also can select a GIF, a sticker, or a text. So let's put like it's fruits. I'm going to write down fruits to see what is coming. Sometimes and the GIF is too large and it's not going to allow you, like here, too big. Again, so let's select another one, this one. Okay, description, frutas en español. En español, make a game. And then your game are always going to be public because again, if you want unlisted or private, you will need the paid version. Let's make a game. When you go in again, here we are going to put the question. For example, in this one, I just want to put the picture of the fruit and answer what fruit it is. So I will put ¿qué es? And the answer, for example, plátano. Plátano is a banana. So then I need to find an image that it has the banana. So for the image, again, you can upload here the picture, or you can choose one of these GIFs that they are already here. So
Vanessa, you're almost out of time.
Okay, so I'm just finished the game. Yes, sorry, I just created this banana game. And then in here you can select the points. Okay, you can select the point, you save, and that's all. You close the game, and here we have create the game, and it's like it look like that. Here just 2 questions. Here, ¿qué es? And then plátano. Okay, that's all from me. If you have any question, you can ask me later, and I'm always happy for you to contact with another teacher, or you can email me on Twitter. I'm Vane_MFA. Okay, so thank you very much.
Great, thanks very much, Vanessa. Interesting, I haven't seen that resource before, so that's super. Right, if you can stop presenting, then we can move on to Marta. Marta teaches in South London in Wandsworth, and she's going to share some things about monsters with us.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. Yes, I'm gonna share, let's see, my presentation about monsters. It's all about monsters. It's lessons in year 3. They are pre-recorded video lessons. They last between 9 to 16 minutes, and they have teachers' explanations, activities that their children can see while they are looking at the video, and then tasks that they have to submit in the dojos. Sorry, my screen is frozen. Let's see. Okay. So yes, the focus on these lessons is listening to familiar stories. There are 4 familiar stories that we were looking at, and it's also reading for pleasure. How the children access these stories. One of the ways is links to the stories that we give them. Also, we read the stories to them in the video sessions. And finally, we share the links of children in those year groups that can read some of the stories in Spanish. We also include songs and games. For example, some of the games are Read My Lips with colors, or Tócate, the equivalent of Simon Says with body parts, and also some songs. And children are creating, as you can see here, their own monsters. Let's see if we can listen to one of our children. Okay, you got an idea more or less. She's using colors, she's using numbers, and she's using the body parts. We encourage them to create the monsters and also share them in the class dojos. When they are sharing in the class dojos, what we do is giving them feedback. So the feedback generally is with cognates like monstro, praising them with you've done something fantastic, excelente, bello, maravilloso, and also using questions that they are going to see later in other activities that we have planned for them. Like, for example, ¿cómo se llama tu monstruo? What's your monster's name? Or ¿cuántos años tiene? How old is your monster? We also want them to practice some writing skills. So we explain them in the video how to label a mouse or a monster, for example, when we were reading Un bicho extraño, or fill in the gaps when we are reading El monstruo de colores. Also, we give them in the monstruo de colores a glossary at the bottom. So they have familiar words like colors and numbers, and they also have some cognates and near cognates like Inglaterra, for example. Also, with the writing skills, we want them to practice just 5 questions and answers. That they are the ones that they're going to use later on in the role play. when we do the role play, before starting them recording the role play, we in the videos we model for them. So you can see me here with my own monster. I show them the monster, I practice the questions, I record them, and I give them answers with the name of the monster, the colors to describe the monster, where the monster lives, like Brixton, Clapham, Battersea, like more cognates, and also some numbers and body parts like ojos, dos ojos, tres ojos, to use the plural, and finally something about food to look at more cognates, or near cognates, like pasta, pizza, and then we tell them like, okay, you have to do the interview with someone in your family, with your siblings or your mom or your dad, and you have to record it, and again we encourage them to share it in the dojos. Let's listen just to one.
¿Cómo se llama tu monstruo? Mi monstruo se llama Santa Eugenia Juan. ¿Cómo es tu monstruo? Mi monstruo es amarillo, marrón, rojo, azul, naranja, verde. ¿Dónde vive tu monstruo? Mi monstruo vive en Shooting Londres. ¿Cuántos ojos tiene tu monstruo? Mi monstruo tiene 3 ojos. ¿Qué come tu monstruo? Mi monstruo come.
So after the role play, I would like to share with you as well a little bit of pronunciation. We practice a little of pronunciation in these lessons, just to remind them how to pronounce a specific sounds in Spanish, like letter J, let's have a look. Hey, a ver, Lola, ¿estás ahí? Hola, Lola. Hola. Muy bien. I wonder if Lola can read this sentence. Maybe she's doing it right. I don't know. Let's listen to Lola. Let's see if Lola is doing the sound. ¿Preparada, Lola? Sí. Venga. Los ojos más abajo. Sí. We also what we do is, apart from the puppet, it motivates them, because they know the puppet in year 3 is the only year where we use it. In year from reception to year 2, they use different puppets because they have a different Spanish teacher. So then when they move into year 3, we use Lola, and they get very excited because and it's a little bit more exciting and fun for them to read the sentence, but also we model for them. Más abajo, sin pestañas y sin cejas. Let's see out one of our children here. Let's see. Okay. Apart from the pronunciation, what we do is using native speakers. So we have a child in year 3 that speaks Spanish. So he was very eager to read the story Un bicho extraño in Spanish. And we use that to share it in the dojos and say to other children, hey, why don't you read another story in Spanish? Let's listen just to some seconds.
Para completar la historia, se sentaban las orejas. Yo no sabía decir que era aquel bicho tan raro y darle una vuelta al cuento. Era un ratón. Lo vi claro.
So after reading that story and children listening to that story, we gave them a challenge. We said, can you read now? Not now, Bernard. Some children did, not all of them. Also, we gave them another challenge that is explain the story of El Monstruo de Colores, but in English, and most children were happy to do this. I will not play this because we are running a little bit late. And then the singing, the Bajo un Botón, we thought it would be good for some children that maybe need to join in a little bit more and they are working toward expectations. Okay, and then finally in the last lesson, because it was before half term, we decided to give them an activity, a recipe to make pancakes. So we gave them the recipe, but also we told them, can you create a monster pancake? So we gave them instructions, numbers they know, some familiar vocabulary like body parts, and some cognates like fruta and some plurals. And thank you very much, that's all.
Great, thank you very much, Marta. Sorry, it's rushing people through, but there don't seem to be any questions in the chat. There's a lot of people saying they like the idea of the challenge you're putting forward. We like using stories a lot, as you know, and it's great you using your expert children as well to read so that, you know, everyone can see how clever they are and they're the experts in this language. So there's some lovely touches there. Does anybody have a question that they want, any clarification for any of those three speakers? If you like to put anything in the chat. I think we had a good variety of different things there going on. So it's really lovely to see what people are doing. A few bits of discussion here in the chat. The routines of Lola, which we know you use in your classroom, keep that going online. And the point from Janet that it's actually we're using this digital era to help pupils listen and re-listen and practice model language as well, which is great. I think we've made some really big progress on using remote learning. Right, is there a new message there? Has anyone got a question? Right, just saying thank you. Thank you to everyone. Well, we can come back at the end if you've got anyone's got any questions to raise those and part of the discussion at the end there. Can you put, yeah, Claire there. Yeah, if you put the things up, yeah, we know that fuera de aquí, el bicho extraño, el monstruo, and it's, Ahora no, Bernardo, isn't it? Is the fourth one, which is a super book. Okay, it's time then, I think, to turn over to Joe to introduce the next three presentations. Thank you.
Lovely. Thanks ever so much, Bernadette. What a fantastic set of presentations we've had so far. Really lots of interesting ideas that have been shared. It's wonderful. And it's just great being part of this event as well, part two. It's just fantastic. So coming up now, we have another three presentations. We're going to start off with Beth McCord, who's going to be talking to us about ideas from an end of unit German lesson. So over to you, Beth, if you could introduce yourself, share your screen, and approximately stick to the timings. That'd be lovely, about 8 minutes or so, and go for it. Thanks ever so much for agreeing to do this. Over to you, Beth.
No problem, thank you. Just set it up. So my name's Beth McCord. I was a primary classroom teacher, and now I'm an associate teacher for Primary Language Network. Been working there for the past 5 years. That means visiting schools and delivering modern foreign language lessons, and I'm a French and German specialist. So in one school I deliver German lessons, usually 1 hour a week, and that's to year 5 and to year 6. This is my second year in the school, and I was teaching face-to-face with them from September to Christmas. But with the latest lockdown, the school requested pre-recorded lessons. I've also done a series of lockdown lessons in German for Primary Language Network for member schools to use as part of their home learning and getting the languages back to home learners who are not able to get into the school. So rather than the children miss out on the units of work and use the pre-recorded lessons to recap or to revise prior knowledge, we decided that it was important to move their learning on and teach the new units of work remotely. So I delivered a 20 to 30 minute recording once a week with a task set at the end for the teacher to do with the children in school or to be completed at home for those home learning. I'd like to show you some examples from my final lesson on Spring 1 unit of work. We had been learning vocabulary of fruits and vegetables. So we used our language detective skills to learn about the nouns at word level to start with. So we were identifying genders, we were using physical signs to show that we knew the genders, but masculine, feminine, neuter, plurals, things like that. We were using language detective skills to spot cognates and semi-cognates, and then we were extending this to add descriptions to the nouns, talking about adjectival agreement and things like that, and then putting those words into sentences, initially using a marketplace setting. I used games like What's Missing, Guess the Object, Bingo, where the aim was always to beat me, Spot the Difference, Quizlet quizzes, and my final lesson in this unit was using the words in a recipe. Now, the children knew me and they knew my routines, like was mentioned with the puppet, so I wanted to start my lessons in the same way I started them in the classroom. So I always start with a rap, so I'm going to play that for you now. Hopefully. Hallo, wie geht's? Mir geht's gut, danke. Ich bin ein bisschen müde heute. Let's start with our rap, shall we? See if I can remember it. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Guten Morgen, gute Nacht, guten Tag, gute Nacht, guten Abend, gute Nacht. Wie geht's? Gar nicht schlecht. Hallo, wie heißt du? Hallo, wie heißt du? Hallo, wie heißt du? Ich heiße Frau McCord. Auf Wiedersehen, bis später. Auf Wiedersehen, bis später. Auf Wiedersehen, bis später. Auf Wiedersehen, alle Sie. So as was said previously, I thought it was important to keep the consistency of the rap that we use to start the lesson. I think it gets the children into the right mindset, setting up for a language lesson, especially being a visiting teacher going into the classroom. I think it really helps. We then moved on to a game. So we were revising the nouns that we'd already learned. Now, this was really important, especially with me pre-recording lessons, because I didn't know which children had done the lessons previously or not. So it was really important to go back over the words and try to find different ways of practicing the words without them sort of getting bored or falling asleep. So I got my children's plastic fruit in a shopping bag, and I attached instructions to different objects, and I'd pick a piece of fruit out and say, oh, ein Apfel. Ein Apfel. And then I'd ask them to repeat it. Wiederhol, ein Apfel. Put it back to another piece. Oh, eine Gurke. Eine Gurke. So I'd have to touch the floor. Wiederhol, eine Gurke. And we'd go through the fruits or the vegetables, just practicing the nouns, trying to get them up and moving, because I was really aware that a lot of children were spending an awful lot of time just sitting and watching screens. And whether they were in school or at home, it was something they could join in with and hopefully engage with. I made it more tricky as it went on. So I'd pick something out. I'd say the word, eine Birne, and they'd have to do the action before I showed them the fruit. So just little things there. Have a go at keeping them thinking and listening for the noun in the target language, but also getting them up and moving as much as possible as well. Then after I'd gone over the nouns, I went through some verbs and we started to look at the idea of doing a recipe. We had a quick chat about what the subheadings could be, what the title could be, thinking about the fact that we were doing fruits and vegetables. What could Obsalad mean? What could Zutaten mean? What could Anleitung mean? Obviously, I wasn't getting anything back from the pupils at this point because it was all pre-recorded, but you have to assume that they're engaging and assume that they're taking part. And then I went on to make the actual fruit salad. So I demonstrated the verbs rather than just going through and explaining what they meant. So you can just about see me at the top chopping up an apple. If I move this list out the way, you can just about see me chopping up the apple at the top, and I'd actually show the fruit, and I'd talk about how we could make links between the German instructions and the English words that I knew they would know, such as peel and cut and things like that. And of course, the final instruction was obviously to try the recipe. So I probiert das Rezept, showed them me trying it and told them that it'd be in the fridge for my children's breakfast the next morning. I think it always helps when you bring a touch of reality to lessons. The children appreciate that. They're just genuinely nosy, aren't they? So then I obviously did say at that point that there was no need for them to go and raid the parents' fridge and steal all the fruit in the house. I suggested that maybe if they did want to make it, that would be wonderful, but they did need to get an adult's permission. The actual task that I set them was to write their own recipe for a fruit salad using the word bank that you can see here. I showed them, I went through, made sure that there was a chance for them to note down what the words meant. I had a brief discussion about the fact that Apfelsinen, for example, can be oranges, or you can use Orangen. We'd come across both words during the lessons in previous weeks. And then I left them, told them to press pause, left them to write their own recipes, and I said goodbye and left it there for the week. And I have to say, having homeschooled my year 1 daughter for the entire duration of lockdown, I was determined for my lessons not to be just sitting looking at a PowerPoint. So I was really thrilled to get feedback from the school saying that the children were still looking forward to language lessons, despite me not being able to go into school. And that's it from me.
That was absolutely amazing, Beth. Thank you so much. It was so, yeah, just lovely, dynamic, lovely to hear how you're been doing the active learning there, and using like a flip model, the way that you're creating sort of asynchronous lessons. But as you say, the children were looking forward to their language lessons. That's brilliant. Well done. I'm blown away. It's lovely. We had one question. I know we're supposed to be doing questions at the end, but just a quick one, if that's okay, which was, what is bingo with the aim to beat me? Was a question. Could you clarify that? Is that all right?
Yeah, it was just bingo. So I showed a slide with the fruits and vegetables that we've been learning and told the children to choose 6, make a note of them on a piece of paper. But then I didn't use like all of them, because I obviously, to do bingo with a pre-recorded lesson, you have to actually go through every single fruit or vegetable that you've put up to make sure that someone wins. So I always made sure that my board contained the very last fruit or vegetable that could be called out, if you like. So I always lost, but the children didn't know that.
Amazing. That's lovely. Thank you so much. That was really, really fascinating. Lovely. Fantastic. Wow, what a way to kick us off. That's lovely. So we now have Joanne Hornby, who's going to be talking about her, well, it says summer party, but I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce the word LUAU, but I'm sure Joanne can tell us. Over to you, Joanne.
Thank you so much, Jo. It's a Lua, summer Lua.
Of course it is. Sorry, Lua. I didn't want to mispronounce it. There we are. Okay.
That's all right. It's a Hawaiian party. So my name is Joanne Hornby. I work for Primary Languages Network. I am a primary school teacher with primary languages specialism. I train for Primary Languages Network, and I teach in another school as well. So actually, thank you for asking me to speak today. It gave me the chance to flick through all the photos and all the footage that I've taken throughout this last year of online, and I just was amazed actually the progress I've made, because the main school that I teach in, we switched to live teaching like that overnight. So it was quite the baptism of fire. Now I'm very much a creative, singing, dancing, music, drama person, and actually I absolutely thrived on the challenge of live teaching. It really played to my strengths, and I found that I could be creative in different ways that I couldn't be in school. So teaching online, and I think Emily might have mentioned last week about this screen being my little screen classroom and my little theatre, my box, and that's how I saw it, and I saw the children like that too, so that's how I try to play to my strengths. So I want to talk to you today about a Year 6 Summer Lua party that we created based on one of the Primary Languages Network topics of a Hawaiian summer party. I felt very sorry for the Year 6s because it'd been a very long and tiring and challenging term, and it's a shame to end their year at primary with not much happening. There was no prom, there was not much happening, so I decided it'd be really nice if we could actually hold our cocktail party that we usually would do, but do it virtually online. So this was all teaching, live teaching via Zoom, I'm going to talk about today. So we started off by making collier Hawaiian, to making the leis, the Hawaiian leis is what we made. And this topic, it was a real celebration of language that we've been learning throughout our 4 years of language learning in primary school. So it was revisiting, so it was a time to celebrate our language really and use it in a new way. So we made our necklaces, the children materials they would need, they were told about, and then online I delivered the lesson. So we were all on screen together with our materials, and I was going through the instructions in French. There's a lot of instructions there. So we were looking for cognates, we were looking for prior knowledge, for language that we knew already, and we were working out, and we were making, so it was demonstrating, and we were making the collier at the same time. We didn't get to finish it, but they did finish them in their own time. So here we are, we have mon collier Hawaiian. And then they could practice describing them. So the next lesson we were online wearing our colliers, and we were practicing in the chat rooms as well. So we used the chat online. So we were practicing adjectival agreement. Une fleur, is it une fleur violet or violette? So we could either use a visual understanding by putting hands on our heads for one, for violet, or hands on our shoulders for violette. So I could see on screen immediately who'd got the right answer. Or we could use the chat as well, adjectival agreement in the chat, and then go send, and then we had a flurry of all the right answers popping up on screen. Here, so it's another example. And then we did a little bit of writing about our collier, describing them. So we had the language there, they coloured in the collier, and then we wrote, okay, using the model there. And then we went on to talk about a fruit cocktail. So this was the big for a series of end our year by actually designing our own fruit cocktails, making our own fruit cocktails, and then having a party online all together. So we looked at all the ingredients we would need. So we were revisiting language that we'd looked at previously. There was also new languages in there. We'd looked at instructions and bossy verbs in French, but there were some different ones in here as well. So practicing the verbs, we were acting them out on screen. We were breaking out into breakout rooms where somebody could give an instruction and the girls would have to give the right action to match. We were using word reference as well, like Kate, my colleague Kate mentioned before, to help choose new items that we might want to add into our cocktails, because they never want to make it simple, do they? They wanted marshmallows and all kinds of things going in their cocktails. Okay, so we played lots of games like Last Man Standing Bingo, which is one of my absolute favorite games for playing online. With the different items, playing bingo, playing mind reader. So can you guess which item I'm going to put into my cocktail? And then we looked at the written recipe here. So there's a lot of language there, but we were reading it, we were practicing, going out into our breakout rooms again and reading our recipes out loud to each other to help understand. And then here's some of the examples that we came up with that they created of their own recipes. So it's a really, oh, they had to give them a really nice name as well. So this is Montagne Tropical. Okay, this is Sentir le Feu, Feel the Fire cocktail. How exciting. Okay, so that's their ingredients, and then they wrote the recipe, how they would make it. And this is one of my favorite, turtles in the sea, and she's added grapes in there to look like little turtles, so they've got a great imagination. Okay, and there's the instructions as well. Okay, so towards the end of our last session, we had an extra long lesson online, and I had prepared myself a video of how to make the cocktail. So this is what I gave them to watch and to listen. So I'll just give you a little example.
Bonjour les filles. Pour faire un cocktail de fruits, il faut un verre mesuré, du jus d'orange.
Okay, I'm not sure that because I'm very much out of time, but that was a pre-recorded part of my lesson. So the children then they had to watch the video. Bear in mind, we've been practicing the language. They knew how to use iMovie, they knew how to use clips, because we've been using it a lot during our lockdown lessons. And they had about half an hour, 40 minutes to make their own cocktails and to video themselves making the cocktails. And then they had the last 15 minutes of the lesson where they came online with their cocktails already. And we were all on screen, we were all dressed up with big glasses on, party hats, you name it, we were all on screen. They all got virtual backgrounds like Vanessa had before. I was very jealous with the rolling waves in the background. And this is one example. I have some amazing examples, but they've all got children's faces on, so I'm really sorry I can't show this. But this is a very short example.
Comment faire un cocktail? Prenez un verre. 100 millilitres, l'ajout d'ananas. 5 millilitres, l'ajout myrtille. Ajoutez 8 raisins et rondelles citron vert.
Okay, so that's just a very short video just to show you that. And then this was the culmination of our 6 weeks or 7 weeks lessons. We had our little Hawaiian party. We were all on screen with our drinks. There's an example, one of the cocktails made, and we played some party games. So I just used wrapping paper and just dressed up my boring grey wall, and we played games where we revisited language such as what is your name, where do you live, etc. All questions, personal information questions that they could answer, and then we played noughts and crosses on the screen. So that was our virtual Hawaiian party. Thank you.
Wow, I didn't want that to stop, Joanne. That was amazing, absolutely amazing. I think you're very brave to do.
You know, alcohol was in my cocktail at that time. Maybe afterwards.
Okay, I was going to say, I think you're very brave to do breakout rooms with primaries. Did they cope with that? Okay, did they find it was all right? Did it take them a while to get used to it?
Absolutely. They absolutely loved it. They absolutely loved it. I kept it very short, so it was maybe just 4 minutes, 5 minutes, and then I dropped it. They didn't know which room I'd drop into, so I could drop in at any time. So they were absolutely on it, practicing their language, because they didn't want to be spotted not practicing it. And then we must have used it about 3 or 4 times because they wanted to just be in different groups and see what's in their little rooms. But it worked really well.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much. A very different sort of presentation to Beth, very practical, just brilliant. Lovely, 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 lovely stuff. Great. Okay, so
thank you very much.
Brilliant, Joanne. For the last person for this particular section is Janet Clarke, who's going to be talking about her, sharing good practice for remote learning in modern languages. Are you ready, Janet? Over to you. Do you want to unmute yourself first of all? Fantastic. Thanks ever so much, Janet, for agreeing to do this.
You're very welcome. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for allowing me to present some of my wonderful children's work. So I'm employed by a small rural school in West Cheshire, Wimbolsley, and we are federated with a larger school now in Ellesmere Port, William Stockton. And I'm actually the MFL lead at Wimbolsley, and I teach the French across the school from EYFS through to Year 6. And last week, Emily, it was wonderful. She showed some of the lessons that the fantastic Primary Languages Network have been working on, the lockdown lessons, particularly for this lockdown this time. Well, during the first lockdown, for me, it was a baptism of fire. This remote learning was something completely new to me. And I was asked to teach the French through Google Classroom, which again was quite new to me, and I had to learn all about it. So I was gathering my own resources and teaching lessons, and everything went quite well. But during this second lockdown, we were very lucky, being members of the Primary Languages Network, that they had produced these wonderful lockdown lessons. And one of my favourites was this Year 4 and 5 one, which Emily spoke about last week, which was going to the market to buy fruits and vegetables. Now, my children in Year 4 and 5 were already familiar with fruit names, and this wonderful lesson was all about going to the market and actually asking and answering questions, so going to buy the fruits and the vegetables. Now, normally, if I was in the classroom, I would have all my fruits and vegetables, and I would set up a market stall, and we would be buying and selling the fruits and vegetables, and they would be using their wonderful language. But obviously, this wasn't possible in school. So I set the children a little bit of a challenge. And as Emily said in her lesson, they were to make their own market stall at home. I wasn't quite sure how the children were actually going to do this. But they rose to the challenge, and the most wonderful thing was that they got their parents involved. So as you can see from, I've done some slide shots from Emily's lessons, and basically the questions were, avez-vous, do you have, and je n'ai pas de, I do not have. But obviously they had to know all their fruits and vegetables to use these questions. And I will show you on the next slide in a moment what the children produced at home, which was absolutely brilliant. But as you can see from Emily's lessons, there was also some writing and some drawing involved. And my children really do love, they're quite artistic, my Year 4 and 5 children, and they really did enjoy drawing the fruits and the vegetables. And then also challenging themselves, they then went on to think about their colours and think about the sizes of the fruits and vegetables. So I actually had some amazing written and colourful work as well. If I just move to the next slide, you can see that the first picture at the top was one child who really went to town at home. And you can see the head is actually his mum. And his mum told me she hadn't used her French since she was at school. So that was quite a lot of years ago. But they both rose to this challenge. And I think they'd raided the fridge and the fruit basket and just made their own market stall, and they were asking and answering the questions. Absolutely brilliant. And later on, his mum had said to me how much she'd really enjoyed it, and she couldn't believe how fantastic his French was. And then the second one, you can just see a picture of lots of fresh fruit and vegetables. And this child, he does find French particularly challenging sometimes. And he'd gone into the fridge and the fruit bowl, And with his mum, they'd actually gathered together all that they could. And again, they'd set up their own fruit and vegetable store, which was amazing. And then the pictures at the bottom here, the final two there, I wished really that I could show you the audio for this, because I was so proud of this young lady. She'd used something which was called TikTok. Now, many of you in the IT world will be familiar with this, but I wasn't. But she'd created her own TikTok video, and she had taken on actually being the role of the person asking for the fruit and then the shopkeeper. So she kept coming in and out. At one point she'd be asking, and she had some cards with the fruit and vegetable on, which I'd already prepared for those who were unable to at home find the fruit and vegetables themselves. So she was offering the card, and then all of a sudden she'd come back again, which is the second picture that you can see, and she'd actually be the shopkeeper. It was just absolutely amazing, and I was blown away with what she'd produced. But unfortunately I had a little trouble with the audio, and I wasn't able to actually show you so that you could listen to her. But it was amazing because she was changing her voice. So she was using all the familiar French that she knew. And not only was she doing the avez-vous, she was actually saying bonjour and changing her voice into a different role. So she was using her please and her thank you, s'il vous plaît, merci. And it was just absolutely wonderful to hear. So I was just so proud. And I wanted to share that with you, and share it with Emily, and share it with the Primary Language Network, just to say how wonderful these lessons were for someone like me who is I'm not an IT specialist in any way. And I will say that it was a baptism of fire for me, all this teaching online and not being able to be face to face in the classroom in front of the children. But I thought it would be nice to share that with you, just to show Emily, you know, how the children had enjoyed these wonderful lessons.
Wow, I'm really touched, actually, Janet. Thank you so much for your honesty and sharing your practice, and it's just really wonderful. And I think it's testament to yourself, the fact that you know, you've been really honest in the way that you've said how you've adapted to remote teaching. That ideally you'd love to be in the classroom, but in the context we find ourselves in, the way in which you've given it a go, you've done fantastic results, and the way in which the parents as well have gone for it also, and using, you know, new technologies and what have you. I just think it's a real privilege. It's a real honor to hear those words, Janet. So thank you so much. It's been, I think all three presentations in this section have been really lovely and all different. So it's been superb. Thank you so much, and well done. Sincerely, well done. That's brilliant. Wow. Okay, so we're going to go into the question stage now. We've got one question I've got so far in the that I've written down, or I've copied and pasted into my Google Doc. If there are any other questions that come up for anybody, feel free to put them in the chat right now. But one question which I would love to put to everybody is, do you think there is an advantage to the lesson being pre-recorded? So, you know, in other words, the difference between sort of synchronous and asynchronous lessons and using pre-recorded lessons. What do people think about that? I mean, it was particularly aimed at sort of Beth, as it were, but so maybe Beth, if you'd like to start off with your answer to that, and then if anyone else wants to chip in as well, that would be fantastic.
Well, to be completely honest, I was absolutely terrified when they said they wanted pre-recorded lessons.
Right.
Because the idea of sitting and talking, that's not what teachers do. Teachers thrive off feedback from children. You go into a classroom with a lesson plan and you end up teaching a completely different lesson because the children lead the learning half the time. So it was a real sort of eye-opener when they said they wanted pre-recorded lessons. It was sort of, oh, I'm going to sit in my kitchen and talk to myself. That's fun. But I think there are positives to it, and having thought about it from the school's perspective, there are definitely positives to it, because it means they can do the lesson when it suits them. And obviously their timetables are all over the place. They don't know whether they've got children on live lessons. and especially in those first weeks when they didn't know what children they had in the school, what children they had at home. And from the classroom teacher's point of view, to actually just have a lesson that they could press play at any time in the week must have been a real benefit. I found it hard to start with, but I found it got easier, and I got more adventurous with the games I played, and I got more, I was really sort of passionate about the idea of them not just sitting still the whole time, because I say I've got a 5-year-old, and some of her lessons she'd lost interest after 3 minutes because it wasn't even age appropriate, let alone designed to engage her. So I knew that there were challenges for parents. I knew that there were challenges for teachers, and actually I can see a pre-recorded lesson fitting in a lot better in a lockdown situation, which is what we had.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the advantage, as you said so eloquently, the advantage of a pre-recorded lesson is, of course, we don't know what access to technology the families have. We don't know if they have a good internet connection during the whole day, as it were. It might be that the father or the mother is using the laptop, that the house laptop, to do their work. So it's all been very challenging. So I think that having those pre-recorded options is wonderful. I mean, I've got a 6-year-old myself, and having to do what I do plus home teach and all, it's all been lots of fun. But I think your honesty there again is fantastic, and I agree that if people have the kit, live lessons can be fantastic and dynamic and what have you, but having those pre-recorded options are really great as well. Any other comments from anybody else in the session? Yeah, Joanne, do you want to?
Thank you. Yes. So Beth's experience was going from pre-recorded to live, and mine was very much just live from the start. We hadn't even thought of pre-recording from my school, really. And what I really like about it is the fact that you're actually bringing the children together so they can see their friends on school. So you don't always get that when you're doing a pre-record lesson, because they can watch it at any time. And I like the fact that we can be a little bit spontaneous as well, whether I've got hybrid learning, I've got some in the classroom or at home. So for example, we've done lots of scavenger hunts, as long as everything goes back at the end of the session. We've rapped online. We did a New Year's rap, and I gave everyone 1 minute to go and find a hat or an item of clothing to look more gangster, so you've got that opportunity, I think, to make the lesson go in a certain way that you want to and respond to the children directly online.
Yeah, that's lovely. I love Kate Percival's comment. Cons would be if it's harder to judge pace and inclusivity if they're pre-recorded lessons. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. If you're seeing the children's faces live, you can sort of gauge how things are going. You can see an individual child and sort of work out whether they need more help or what have you. Yeah, absolutely. But there we are. I think that's lovely. Any other questions? Put them in the chat right now. I'm just reading through the chat, see if there's anything else I wanted to pick up on. I hear what you're saying when it's been scary but brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. That's lovely. And I agree again about the support from everybody. I think as a community of language teachers, I think we've been fantastic in sort of helping everybody, supporting everybody with different ideas. As Janet was saying about learning how to use Google Classroom, it's just fantastic. Lovely. Any other questions in the chat? I think just lots of lovely comments here. So Claire's saying about the thing I liked about doing pre-recorded lessons was that I could film short sections and then redo them if they weren't right. It was also meant I could take some of the lessons outside. Yeah, absolutely. I enjoyed learning how to edit video, add graphics and subtitles. Brilliant, that's lovely. But it was very time consuming. And although it was great to see the videos that the students sent back, I know some students still did not access the lesson for whatever reason. Yeah, that's right. And we always have to be mindful of that as well. Absolutely. Easier to monitor attendance if the lesson is live. Yeah, sure. Lovely. Okay, well, I think we're sort of coming up to the next section, if that's okay. So if I go back to my guide, we're now going into the clinic Q&A section. So if it's all right, Paul, can I hand over to you if you're there?
Yeah, thank you very much, Joe. And thanks to the 6 presenters for really great presentations, and to Bernadette and Joe for chairing. So we're now going into the final section of today, which is, as Joe said, the clinic, the question and answer session, where we're firstly going to answer some questions that were fielded from the first event in the questionnaire feedback that people gave after that, and we should also have time for other questions. So please do feel free to add questions, general questions, either about the presentations you've just seen, or about the presentations that Raquel and Emily gave a couple of weeks ago, or indeed anything else that's arisen. Just put that in the chat. So I'm going to start off then by just presenting the people on the panel who are going to answer the questions. So you've already met Bernadette Clinton and Joe Dale, and Raquel Tolarrego and Emily Woodruff are who presented 2 weeks ago, are also present on the panel. So various people will be answering questions. And I'll start off with a question by Geraldine St. Laurent, who asked, she said, I checked out the BBC Languages co.uk website for learning objectives as discussed in the meeting, but only found archived K2 framework for languages, which was written prior to the introduction of statutory foreign language teaching at KS2. And it's a technical question, is that the document you still use?
Right, okay, the website is actually BCC Languages. It's my website. No, we don't. Thank you for pointing this out, Geraldine, because I needed to go back and look at my website and the things weren't clearly displayed there. So we've re-put it up again now under the Spanish tab in the website. The language learning objectives that were there were from the Key Stage 2 framework that was produced in 2005. And those who were around there, I mean, Janet was around then, same time as me, was a really good framework looking at oracy, literacy, intercultural understanding, language learning strategies, and knowledge about language. That was superseded by the National Curriculum Programme of Study, which is the one now that we do, which was written in 2013 and is the statutory requirement for everybody since languages became compulsory in 2014 at Key Stage 2. So that it must be the one that we start from. And what we've put up now on our website are those 12 objectives, which are the national objectives for Key Stage 2. What we did in Hackney is that we thought that wasn't sufficient to support teachers. So we've broken down those objectives. So what that means in each year between 3, 4, 5, and 6. And that is also now on the website. So we have to start from that because that's what statutorily we have to deliver. But the Key Stage 2 framework objectives are really good, particularly the intercultural understanding ones, and are well worth looking at. So don't throw them out, but they're not the thing that we legally, if you like, have to deliver under the programme of study.
Thank you very much. So the next question came from Marta Lopez, who of course spoke earlier. I wonder, Marta, do you want to ask the question directly or shall I read it out? What do you prefer?
You mind to read it? I just, right now, I don't have it with me.
Of course, yeah. Sure. So yeah, I think your question was about, really, there were two elements to it. The first question was really how to motivate children who are not engaging with remote learning, and connected to that, how to motivate children who are having difficulties in submitting tasks when teaching asynchronously. So two linked questions, one on general motivation and remote learning, and the second more specifically on submitting tasks when teaching asynchronously. Who'd like to answer that question?
I can do the first part, certainly. So in relation to motivation, in the chat, I've just put a slide in there, which is essentially a compilation of different responses that I received from the MFL Twitterati around how they motivate or maintain motivation while remote teaching, which hopefully you'll find interesting. So I don't know if you can click on that and have a look, but basically, I mean, the first point is just sort of soft skills, be as positive and encouraging as possible, praise students when they deserve it, let them know that you care. I think those sort of, particularly at the moment with everyone feeling, you know, in being in a state of anxiety and what have you, and because of the current situation, everyone having their own personal situations to deal with. I think that things like that are very important, as well as asking how people are when if you're doing a live lesson, asking how they are when they first join. Presumably, if students are not, or children are not coming to the remote lessons, that there is some sort of pastoral response to that, whereby a teacher maybe would ring home or find out what's going on. Certainly, my understanding is there are lots of schools that are doing that, and that's obviously important based on your register to check if children are not coming to the lessons, why that is, and then giving them some maybe supplementary work to do or pre-recorded lessons. And then based on more or less all the other suggestions there are different, some of which I think will help with the second answer actually, some different techie tools on how to achieve different outcomes. For example, setting short and snappy tasks, which can be good for maintaining motivation, I think, some of which we've seen some fantastic examples today. Some ideas around speaking practice using a moderated environment, using things like Flipgrid or Quicker. The ones at the end I particularly like, giving the students rewards, such as sending them praise postcards. I can share a link in the chat. I adapted a praise postcard that someone else had tweeted about recently. The idea being that you create an audio recording using a website like Vocaroo, which I'm sure we all know of, VOCAROO, which is a really lovely way of being able to record audio without any registration needed at all. And you can generate a QR code from that website, and then you can then add the QR code onto the praise postcard. So I'll share the template of that in a moment. And that could be a nice way of maintaining motivation by sending that postcard home to the children, who can then scan it and then listen to your dulcet tones saying what a wonderful piece of work they've done for you, for example. So those are a few ideas. Hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you, Joe. So does anybody want to answer that, or indeed the second question specifically about
yeah, I thought about this question, Paul.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we've talked a lot about the wonderful tasks that everyone has presented, today, all my colleagues and everyone else, the lessons they've put together. And last week we talked about, a couple of weeks ago, so we talked about Raquel's live lesson and my pre-recorded lesson, and a lot of thought, I think, has been put to think about, the lesson plan and the lesson objective, the outcomes, etc. So I think really comes down to that, the task set, is it creative? Is it engaging? Is it motivating? Is it easy to do? Does it involve other people in the family, maybe? Like we've seen so many people setting up markets and having the parents, grandparents involved. So I think doing all of these things, really thinking about your task, that's going to really engage the children. But also when you might need a few more sort of like things to motivate yourself, which might be a little bit more extrinsic, such as giving house points for turning in work, just turning in the work. I know one of my school, for each work turned in on Google Classroom, 3 house points were associated with that, and they kept continuing counting the points. I think Joe said sending postcards, rewards. One of my school, we've got the French award. So at the end of the week, there's a class whose work, the hardest or whatever, they get that certificate, so that recognition. And these things can keep on going, because we know schools have been putting together class assembly on Zooms or whole school assembly on Zoom. So we can keep all of that going. Or also in your lesson, either live or pre-recorded, give a shout out to the children who've produced good work the week before. Show the work. All that kind of stuff. I think it can be really motivating. And all the wonderful platforms that we talked about. And a couple of weeks ago, I shared Padlet, which I really, really loved. And I thought it was really collaborative. And, it really encouraged children to sort of have a go, I think. And lastly, we talked about difficulty joining in online. Last resort, remote teaching doesn't mean online teaching only. I think it's okay if it suits your purpose to have packs, and Primary Languages Network, we've put together some learning packs for schools to print and give out to children as well. so yeah, that was my thought. I think really going down to the task itself, and also one more thing, actually, I've been thinking about the relationship. You've talked about that as well, Joe, asking how they are, and looking at the camera, and keeping your routine and being friendly, and all of these things that children are familiar with, and they're all of these things, we know that's part of motivation, isn't it? They talk about self-efficacy, what else? Relationship with the teacher, competence. So if they feel they can do all of these things, they're going to want to join in. But I mean, from what everyone has shown, I think that's absolutely amazing and so inspiring. And I'm pretty sure a lot of children have engaged with their MFL lessons online. So well done, everybody. I'm just so blown away today by everybody's presentation. So that's it.
Thanks, Emily. Raquel, you wanted to add something, I think.
I just wanted to add something that I do feel like we do not have a lack of motivation in primary when we are doing like languages online. There might be a lack of confidence sometimes that you can like overcome by doing the things that you've mentioned, like praising children or make them shine by choosing them to answer a question that they know really well. But I think when we haven't had pupils joining in, it's never been a lack of motivation, but maybe one laptop at home and two kids with a same timetable of a live lesson, and the GS6 having preference at home to use the laptop or something else. Everybody does obviously the printed packs as well, but I was just thinking that a phone call seems to be the best way to kind of like get someone in. So just wanted to make sure that I think in secondary school, there might be a lack of motivation sometimes, but it's because they might have a lot of work or the things, but I really don't think there is a lack of motivation. It could be more a lack of resources rather than motivation. It's just a point I would like everybody to have a think about.
Thank you, Raquel. So I'm going to ask another question, which is this time comes from Kate Percival, and she asked, what can improve the transition between feeder primary and secondary schools in terms of modern foreign languages?
Raquel was going to present on this one.
I'm going to do a very quick presentation. I just thought having some pictures to look at while I speak would be a really good thing. So in our school, and then Bernadette is going to add something at the end about how we do this as a whole borough as well. But in our school, we are very, very lucky at the moment to have strong links with 3 different secondary schools, 2 in our borough and 1 in another borough, which all our pupils go to. The first one of the schools is actually not one that we feed. None of my children go there, but it's a school that I was in touch with from a previous school, and they were really looking forward to developing their language leaders program, and they wanted more people to collaborate with. So I think, how can we improve? Working together. That would be my answer. That's the answer. And by working together, I mean communicating, getting to know your colleagues in secondary school, making sure you send them loads of emails because they are very busy. So put all your energy there and go and tell them, can I come and observe your lessons? Would you like to come in and observe my lessons? Would you like to plan some activities together? And obviously make sure that those activities have a purpose. If there's no purpose, what is the point of planning something? It would end up being a waste of time. Bernadette will talk about the joint CPD that we do. And I'm going to show you just some of the things that we do with the different secondary schools. So here are Parkwood pupils visiting Skinner's Academy on European Day of Languages. We do this every year. It's something very simple. And they just go there and learn some other language that day. So in this case, they were learning greetings in Portuguese and Italian numbers taught by students from secondary school. So that's one link that is once a year, but it is always there. And we know that our year 6s are going to join in this. We also have this link with Petty Academy, where they have a young language leader group, which are pupils between year 8 and 9. And they prepare mini lessons of like 20 minutes to come and deliver to my pupils. In this case, they teach in year 3 and year 6, but they do teaching all the way from year 1. It is very interesting for me, and Bernadette was actually observing that day, which made us laugh. When some of the pupils were teaching my year 1 pupils the body parts, no, sorry, my year 2 pupils, the body part. And one of the little girls in my class put her hand up. We all thought she wanted to play the splat game, but no, she just said to the secondary school child, sorry, but you don't say cabeza, you say cabeza because Z is pronounced fe in Spanish. You could even say se if you wanted. So that was like, for me, it was like really good. The secondary school child did not feel shy or anything. And I believe he felt okay to be corrected by a little child rather than by a teacher. So it was a really nice thing to see how they taught each other, even though they are like 7 years apart. This is another example where my pupils from year 3, 4, and 5 went into year 8 to teach Spanish. And these are just like different topics they did. They taught sports that I like, I don't like, fruits that I like, I hate, or I dislike, and then animals, similar to the ones I presented 2 weeks ago. And this is feedback from the year 8s. They saying, it was very creative, I liked it a lot, and you should come again. It was very enjoyable. They were very positive, and they were saying, I didn't know this in Spanish yet. How can a year 3 child be teaching me? And we just explained, well, we do Spanish from a very early age, like when you are in nursery. We've been doing this all the time. We have stopped now because it was difficult to fit it into the remote learning. But we have kept things like, for example, in the previous lockdown, my pupils met teachers from 4 different schools, secondary schools. So we had a meeting where they could connect with the classroom and from home and just get to meet either the head of department or the year 7 Spanish teacher that they knew they would have in September, ask questions, and just get to just like have a little bit of an induction day, even it was still remote learning, still using online resources. I wanted to play this very short video, it's 2 minutes, with Nacho, who is the head of modern foreign languages in a school in Islington, and we're working a lot together. This year, our plan was that his year 9 pupils would come in once a month to help prepare my year 5 pupils for their trip to Spain. This has not been possible, and we have had to cancel our trip to Spain for this year due to COVID restrictions, but we are still working together and we are still in touch.
The collaborative project that we do with Parkwood Primary School is an exceptional opportunity for our students to understand the way that we are teaching them, because in order for them to get ready to deliver a lesson with Parkwood Primary with the students in year 5, to understand that it helps them understand what the way that we are teaching them our approach, which is via acquisition and not so centered in study. We want them to be able to communicate in the target language, and it's brilliant. The students get really nervous. We include that lesson in the unit for a secondary school and how they do the comparison with primary school, and then we take them to Parkwood, and during a couple of weeks, what they do is, so we first set up that in our scheme of work, the students need to prepare a lesson, a mini lesson for the year 5s, and that helps them understand how to explain to other people. And when you are trying to explain to someone else, this has been proved already that by research, that it's a great opportunity for you to assimilate better the content and also to understand how you need to study in the future. So it's double advantage, allows them to prepare something very well, and also at the same time to get ready for when they need to do their speaking task in their GCSE or how to express in public. They get really nervous, but they really have a fun time, and it's really helpful for them. You can see here some images of for them where they are explaining and the lesson that they've been preparing. As you can see, some of them, they get really nervous, but it's an extraordinary opportunity, and we look forward always to keep that project with Raquel.
So This is all that we do, and a bit more that we don't have time for, but just some ideas. Okay, Bernadette, if you can just explain the rest.
Okay, just to explain to you the context that we work in, all the Hackney primary and secondary schools all study Spanish as their first foreign language, and that was decided by the heads and the local authority meeting together in 2013. And because they'd done bits of language before that, but they'd had no structured input of language, that was agreed, and from there we've been working on that. So they all do that Spanish. So the primaries know then that the work they've been doing at least over 4 years at Key Stage 2, some of them do Key Stage 1, that they will carry that on into secondary. Sometimes people say to me, well, aren't you restricting the students in terms of language? But actually the secondaries also teach a really large number of languages as well. It's a very language rich borough. And you'll see there's a list there. All secondary schools do more than one language, but Spanish is the first language. Okay, so things that we do in order to try and bridge that gap and make those links. I said to you earlier, we start from the National Curriculum Programme of Study, and we've developed objectives for each year. So the secondaries know what those objectives are, and particularly, so for example, last week, we had our transition meeting with the secondaries. There was over 40 teachers there from primary and secondary, and we were going through the objectives and what they meant. And so the secondaries are very aware of our Year 6 objectives and what the children have been doing. They also know that we have a scheme of learning which is freely available to everybody. It's free to anybody to look at. So they know the things that we've covered. So that our Year 6 data is based on those yearly objectives. Have they achieved them or not? And because we have a data team, I know we're really particularly lucky on that in Hackney, that the data is then transferred electronically to every secondary school. Most of the Hackney primary schools now, primary pupils now go to Hackney secondary schools. So the data is transferred by the data team. They transfer English, maths and Spanish. Those are the only 3 subjects that are transferred. When I worked in a previous authority, when we didn't have this electronic, I used to get all the primaries to write things out by hand, and I would collect them and sort them out and take them to all the secondaries. So life is much easier now. We've also, because then I get a list of the numbers of every of primary school pupils that are going to every secondary. So on the basis of that, I've now got data from 2017 onwards. We can see exactly where the main groups of pupils are going to in secondary, and we've set up main secondary hubs with their main feeder primary schools. Obviously, some of the primary schools will go to lots of different secondaries, but we at least can pick up their main feeder secondaries. We were also asked by the secondary heads, how do we know what the quality of the provision is in primary? So we set up our Hackney Primary Spanish Award, which was similar to the national award that was set up by Hertfordshire, so that we can say the quality of this one is either it's bronze level, silver or gold, so that this, again, the secondaries know the quality of the provision that there's in the primary schools. Because what we don't want, obviously, is secondaries then saying, oh, well, you know, not respecting what the people in primary have done, which sometimes there's a tendency to do. And this year, I don't know if people have seen the Association of School and College Leaders. They've done a really good transition toolkit. So we've used that and we've adapted that, and we're going to do that as well, which covers, then the primaries can say the sorts of things they've covered. You know, are the children adept at understanding masculine, feminine, which verbs they've looked at, etc. So I would encourage you to look at that if you haven't. Now, I know the situation in Hackney is we're very lucky it's like that, but it seems to me that individual groups of schools could carry on this sort of thing. They could do a transition toolkit. Multi-academy trusts could do that across their trusts primary and secondary. So there are ways that other people can do this and take some of those ideas that we've had as well. And that's it. Right. Okay. And that's just us.
Thank you, Raquel and Bernadette. So I want to bring in Emily, who I think wanted to ask a question.
Yes, thank you, Paul. So I think, yeah, it's so inspiring, the Hackney model, especially with transition. It's definitely, I think, the next challenge for primary languages. And I just wanted to bring in the conversation Janet Lloyd, who is the founder of Primary Languages Network and is my friend and my mentor. And I wanted to ask her, her view of transition, and especially in the light of recently, if you're on social media, you've probably noticed this conversation starting about the review consultation for the new GCSE. And I know Janet has published some of her thoughts on our blogs, etc. So I just wanted to bring in Janet in here because I think she's got a lot to say about this. So I think she's around. So I think Naomi, you need to. Oh no, do we need to make, can Janet unmute herself? Can she do that?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
Sorry. I want to go, gosh, I've put my video on as well. That's even more shocking. I talked a lot with Emily about primary and secondary. And as you know, I've been doing it for a very long time, Emily, and I just feel there's a couple of things we need to think about. Primary is not secondary languages. And I think what we've seen tonight proves that. Primary is its own creature. And I think it's very important that those people who understand primary, and Bernadette and myself have been around a long time, Raquel, yourself, all of you, really need a voice at the table for the future of what primary languages leading into secondary languages is going to look like. I think that it just can't be a word count of 1,500 words. It can't be that, and it can't just be a little bit of grammar. Now, I was involved in developing the ASCII toolkit, and I agree with the ASCII toolkit, okay? And it's what's left in the sieve. It's passing up quality information to the high schools for them to be able to use. And I know you were a secondary teacher. I often ask you now, with your knowledge of primary, what would you take with you if you were back in the secondary school and working?
Yeah, well, like you said, we can't just, or like I think Bernadette or Raquel said, we can't sort of diminish what's been happening in the primary schools, the progress being made, so when you need a proper tool to assess, not to assess, but to sort of bring in the children with you when you go to secondary and see where they're at. And, definitely when I'm hearing, we're starting from scratch again, or I did bonjour in my first lesson, it's a little bit deflating. And I understand, and I understand why secondary teachers are doing that, but maybe we could sort of do things in a little bit more of an accelerated learning fashion, where we would bring some sort of several topic, or maybe through a story, or I think we explored in the past with Primary Languages Network using the same story in year 6 and starting with that same story in year 7. For us, it's a big challenge, isn't it, Janet? Because there are a lot of schools involved. But yeah, definitely the next challenge. There
are a lot of schools involved, Emily, and there are a lot of languages. And you can't negate any language, and we've got to embrace all languages. And the home languages that the children are bringing with them too are so important. You're a native speaker of French. I'm not a native speaker of French. I was a German teacher, but I've had to teach other languages, and I've learned that we've got to inspire children because we don't know what language they may want to learn in the future. I'd recommend as well NALA's grammar toolkit that they've just produced, because that's starting a dialogue that starts right down in Key Stage 1 with our wonderful EYFS colleagues, where the language the children are learning is a determiner. If people go, we hear Kate Percival say determiner. She says determiner, I might say definite article. I've got to correct myself. And if we use the same language, we're going to help more children to understand what you're trying to talk about when you get to high school and somebody uses words you're not so secure in. And I know that ASCII are also working on the 6 into 7 project, which is evidence-based transfer of information to high school. And the book we used was, and you made me think about it, Anthony Brown. We used Anthony Brown because of the imagery in the book the work we could do with it, and then the way that Year 7 could develop it on and refer back to all sorts of grammar that the children had looked at and key language. So that's what I remember us doing that quite a while ago. Perhaps we should integrate that.
Yeah. And one more thing about transition as well. When people say, I went to visit my secondary, and they say we're doing Spanish and we've done French for 5 years together. Oh, I'm so disappointed. Actually, I don't mind so much. I think it's a fresh start for children. Maybe they've not had a good experience with a language, so it's a new chance to start something new. And they're moving on with all the things, all the skills we practice. So we talk about education of the ear all the time, how to listen, how to pronounce, being a language detective, all of these skills, which are language learning skills. And I think that primary is very, primary languages, it's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree. And it's very important we don't lose those phrases such as
language learning skills. So that's not a problem. And I think, like Bernadette said, secondary school, you might start with one language, and then they've got so much to offer nowadays, secondary schools as well. So yeah, I think it's a very big topic, isn't it? Transition.
Yeah, and it really is important. And I can't reinforce enough how strongly I feel, and I think other people do, that the primary experts, the people who understand primary, are at the table and discussing what it is that primary is expected to do and should achieve within the new GCSE framework, rather than it being something that we have to pick up and run with when so many schools, and we've got 650 schools in a network, have done so much already to move the children on and provide them with progression in language learning. Yeah, so that's really important.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Janet. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Janet. So yeah, we just got the last sort of 10 minutes here, and I think I can't see any more questions. So I just wanted to ask a question myself. I've got a general question of, having seen all the presentations today, based on your own personal experience. In the UK, we're moving out of forced universal online learning as a result of lockdown. And obviously, we hope that trend continues towards in-class learning. So I just kind of wondered if there are any kind of key points you wanted to emphasize, in terms of the lessons we've learned from remote learning, how we think that's going to change teaching primary going forward, how it might affect, for example, future use of digital tools at primary level as a result of lockdown, and the kind of changing expectations and opportunities and risks also, and dangers that it's highlighted in virtual learning and using digital tools. It's quite a general question, but I think there's quite a lot there to kind of pick up on if somebody wants to comment.
Well, if I could come in here, if that's okay. So to the presentation I shared a moment ago about maintaining motivation, I've added another slide to that, which is another crowdsourcing experiment that I did, asking the MFL Twitterati for their top tips on teaching languages remotely. Admittedly, probably most of these are secondary school teachers who are sharing these ideas, but I think you could take a lot from it for primary as well. And you've got, well, one of the main tips which came up a few times was to have everything in the one place. So in other words, instead of if you're doing, say, a live lesson and sharing links here, there and everywhere, having everything in the one document, be it if you're working in a Google environment or a class notebook, Microsoft environment, and then having all the things embedded in the one place. That was definitely shared by a few people, but hopefully you'll find that useful as well on other ideas that have been shared by the, as I said, mostly secondary language teachers, but there should be something for everyone there, I think, as well.
Thanks, Joe. Anybody else want to add anything there?
Yes, I would like to add that the use in the game during the remote learning is something that I'm taking now, that I'm teaching face-to-face, because the kids really love the games and they are really motivated. And as I said, there are so many tools nowadays, like the one that I present is just an example. You have WordWall, you have Dectoy, Flippity, and all of this can be used like primary, secondary can be adaptable. So I think that we are very lucky that, as Joy said, during this lockdown, the teachers have been sharing so many tools. They have made so many videos. I have attended, I don't know how many conferences that Joy has organized. And I said that MFL Twitterati community, it has helped me a lot, not only me, to all the teachers. And I think that all these technology ideas, it has totally transformed the way that I'm teaching. And I think that, as I say, I have a very good feedback from my students. I'm secondary teacher, but also I teach some private I do some private tuition with primary students. So I can see that these games are really working as for the secondary student and also for the primary students. So it is something that I'm keeping now in my lesson. Something like Blue Cat, for example, like all this King quiz game. The students, they are just crazy about it. In my school during the lockdown, we have done like online competition once a week. So we organize this kind of quiz competition to all the year 7 students. And it was also a good way to put all the students together, although they work remotely, they cannot see each other because really they were in different classes, but it was also a very good idea to put, you know, all the year 7 together and one day and one specific time to play in this game. And now we are taking this idea during the classroom and we are going to offer now as an after school idea to promote this. So for me, like the discovery of the game, it has been something that definitely it has boosted a lot my teaching.
Thank you, Vanessa. Raquel, Bernadette, and Emily, did you want to add anything?
I would like to add something. I was something that we started doing, I think, in many schools during lockdown, and I will definitely keep once a week, is a challenge, a weekly challenge. We started with an art challenge, then we did a music and Spanish challenge. And I think this is something that you can keep going on your school newsletters, website, Twitter, and that engages pupils and their families when they are at home. So it could just be watch something and do this, or it could be just read a weekly quote in Spanish and English and how does it make you feel, make a poster, or go home and, like you did earlier, make a fruit salad. So I think I will definitely keep the weekly challenges forever instead of like any other type of homework. And also, I think the lockdown and the remote learning has personally made me lose the fear to trying new things. Sometimes I think as teachers, we might be very confident on what we're doing. So we're only using PowerPoint and I don't know, Linguoscope. And then we're going to try and use, I don't know, oh my God, now there is Geniali, now there is this, now there is, okay, I'm going to try and record myself using Loom. Now I'm going to try, so trying a lot more things and giving pupils as well the freedom to maybe produce their work in different ways. So maybe not just always going and doing everything in the classroom and stick it in the book, but give them the chance to create a poster instead on the back of a box of cereal, or bring something by the end of the week that they did at home. So I think it's made me a bit more open on how they can produce their work and how amazing the results are compared to just something I might have just taken a picture of or glued on a book.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that exactly, Raquel. I was going to say, give more choice to the children, you know, how do they want to present their work? You know, that's for me, you know, seeing how different they all are and how they all present differently. I think I'm going to take that forward with me, and not always, like you said, there is one way of showing your learning. There's, you know, multiple ways. So I think I'm going to really think about this going forward. Also, parents, I think parents and families in general, they've enjoyed joining in the lesson and knowing how it's taught. And like Janet Clarke said, you know, this mom said she'd not used her French for years and years. And I think bringing in the parents and the rest of the family, that also, that's going forward. That's something that would be really lovely to be able to continue. yeah, I don't think we can just close our classroom doors and just continue as before. I think things have changed. So that's great. And also tools like Google Classroom, this is the one I've used me. I'd love them to continue being used maybe for like personalized learning or homework, or maybe have a language club on there. Like those children, those few linguists, in primary school, maybe you talk about 10 children who have a real love for languages. It'd be wonderful if they would have somewhere on Google Classroom or whatever, somewhere they can go and do a French club at home or something like that. So yeah, these are my sort of 3 main takeaway from remote teaching.
Thank you, Emily. Bernadette, did you want to add anything final?
Just want to say that we've been using Twitter a lot as well. So particularly through the MFL Twitterati. And so if people aren't that. So Raquel, for example, has been very good in getting her pupils to upload little bits of video of them doing challenges at home. And also giving you the possibility of working with other colleagues. So our music colleague has been just super and put up the 30-day music Spanish challenge. And that goes every day on Twitter as well. So using different things and working with people, despite the fact that we can't see them and have meetings with them, again, I think is something that is great that we've got out of this.
Great, thank you very much, everybody. Any final questions or comments? I think can I make a comment if that's okay? So, yeah. Thank you. I was doing a keynote for the Goethe Institute last year, and as part of that, I wanted to ask the question: do you feel as if you've experienced a paradigm shift in your teaching of languages during the first lockdown? And people sent me lots of tweets, and I put them into a video, which I've now just added to the presentation as well, which I've sort of in the link in the chat. So I've just added to that as well. So it's about a 2.5-minute video of different teachers, again, from secondary, talking about their experiences and how they adapted as a result of the emergency remote teaching that everyone was thrown in as of March of last year. So I think you should find that really interesting. And I've also, if it's okay, I'll put in some example sessions with other sort of tools and things like that were mentioned in the chat as well. So if you want any more support on sort of individual tools, what have you, then you should find that guide really interesting as well. But this has been a fantastic event, Paul. It's been absolutely awesome to hear from everybody and to hear everyone's good practice at primary, because we haven't, unfortunately, on the Tilt webinars, we haven't really sort of covered particularly primary content. So it's just been superb. I know, but Bernadette, I'm sorry, but it's so, and definitely we're going to do more in the future. Absolutely. And I do apologize for that, but this has been fantastic for that very reason, to see all this amazing good practice. So thank you ever so much, everyone, for organizing this. It's been superb. Oh yes, Joe. Raquel, and I've got a good plug for. I'm doing a webinar with Raquel as well on Bravo Spanish, which is not a Tilt webinar, but it's a separate one on the 22nd, and I will put that in the chat as well quickly before we finish. Cool. Sorry, that'd Paul. Be great. Yeah, okay, that's brilliant. So there've been some fascinating presentations and discussions today. I think it's been a really inspiring hearing everybody. We hope the event has made a contribution to emerging responses to learning in lockdown and digital pedagogies in modern foreign languages at primary level. Naomi Wells and I from IMLR, Institute for Modern Languages Research, and I set up this digital modern languages seminar series to foster discussion about digitally mediated policy and practice at all levels of language education. We work more in higher education related subjects, but we thought it was really important to kind of look at how people are looking at critical digital literacies across languages at all levels. So from our point of view, it's been a really amazing learning experience. And I'd just like to close with thanks from both of us to everyone who's joined us, to our 6 presenters, Kate Percival, Vanesa, Macia, Domene, Marta Lopez, Janet Clarke, Beth McCord, and Joanne Hornby. I'd like to thank Janet Lloyd for her contribution. And in particular, I'd like to thank Raquel Dolarrego, Emily Woodruff, Joe Dale, and Bernadette Clinton, who variously have partnered with us on the event, presented, and responded to questions. So thanks very much to you all. We'll be making a recording of the event available soon on our website, and we hope you can join us for future Digital Modern Languages events, which you'll find advertised on our website and through Twitter. And I'll just post a little brief
thing in the chat so you can find that. But yeah, great hearing everybody, great seeing everybody. And yeah, look forward to seeing what we learn from this, what we take into face-to-face classes and in the future. Thank you.